of what my body can't do. I now do have, my cycles vary. I do have cycles of some kind. So anything between like 35 and I have gone kind of 70, but it kind of maybe about 40, 50 days. But I still don't bleed. So I started using a menstrual, actually, again, when I was doing my fertility treatment, I started using a menstrual cup because it was really important. And again, this is the other thing, is saying, take track of what your bleeds are like. Knowing, and I was talking to somebody yesterday who's had Asherman syndrome, and that's a problem that happens can happen, very, very unlikely, but can happen post D&C, surgical management of miscarriage, or cesarean section. Notice what your bleeds are like. How much spotting is there? How much red bleeding? How many days? How many pads or tampons do you go through? So don't just do how I get a period. Pay attention to that. And for me, it's really upsetting because it's still this horrible gunk. I had a copper coil put in after we finished treatment. Copper coils are used in the treatment of Asherman syndrome, and which is to do with when you've got scarring in the womb. I don't have that, but essentially if you have problems with thin womb lining, it is part of the treatment. Ironically, it's part of fertility treatment, having a copper coil, because the copper generates an inflammatory reaction in the endometrium, and so it can essentially cause the lining to get thicker, which is why women who do have a copper coil very often will have heavier bleeds. I had one put it back in after we finished treatment. Well, for two reasons. One was that we needed to draw a line under the hope of wondering, would we be that unicorn couple who, had sex and, oh my God, after all the failed IVF, had a bunk at the wrong time, and oh my God, they're pregnant. I couldn't live in that permanent limbo. But the main reason was to do with, in the hope that at least it would make my periods a bit more like a period than literally, I'm going to be completely TMI. If I didn't know it was a period, I would have thought that it had come from the other hole, like brown. It's distressing because it is a reminder of how my body is broken.
You said some of your cycles are 50, 70 days long. So, every time you have a period, you have this reminder. And so what have you done to kind of give yourself the emotional tools to deal with that reminder?
Well, for me, so when we reached the end of our fertility, or at least the fertility journey with my body, when we tried all of these crazy experimental treatments, I used Viagra, we used blood thinners, I used a drug that's used for chemo, where we had intrauterine infusions where we squirted it in my womb, all these kind of, lots of supplements that are supposed to help with uterine blood flow, you name it, we tried it, and none of that worked. Again, most people don't, having lining problems is unusual, but when it was very clear that we were on the road to nowhere and we couldn't even get off the starting block, and then when I went to see Professor Womb Lining, it was after that I decided I wanted to try, and there's a bit of a sense of going, when you can't have children, or at least with my body, of going, I feel like, what's my legacy? And you get quite existential about it, but you can do with infertility. I am not for one moment saying that having a life without children, or whether it's childless not by choice or child-free, is in no way inferior. I am not saying that at all. I'm talking about my personal feelings about how I felt about my body and my own journey. And I started, essentially it came from a place of being peed off, that I only ever saw one narrative of infertility. The only narrative that we see when people do talk about it is after they've been successful. So, and particularly in public discourse, in the media, if anything you see a story about, somebody talking about their IVF struggle, or their infertility struggle, or I had X number of miscarriages, it always ends with the miracle baby. Or they only say, oh, we had this problem. after they go and they announce a successful pregnancy. And actually, and it's very sanitized. It's the narrative is always stay strong, you'll get there, it'll be worth it when you have your baby in your arms, don't give up hope. And actually that wasn't how I felt, and that wasn't how so many women that I got to know through these kind of infertility communities online, these kind of secret Facebook groups and online forums and so on. It was difficult and messy and physically, emotionally, we didn't feel positive. And particularly when you're in that situation and the only way out that is presented to you, and you're in the pit of depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation is not uncommon with infertility and pregnancy loss. The only way out that is presented to you is having a baby. When you're there going, well, what happens if we don't? Like, am I going to feel like this forever? And there aren't many role models for actually either people who come through it the other side who weren't successful with their fertility journey, but also just acknowledgement that it's desperately unfair, utterly unrelenting, and really hard. And so I was fed up with the fact that in order to kind of have these conversations with other women about what it was really like, you had to go looking for them. I would not have got through my journey if it was not for the incredible sisterhood, solidarity and support of all the incredible women I've had the privilege to get to know through online communities. But it's this hidden world because you have to go looking for it. And also you have to find your people. There's plenty of people who were hope and rainbows, and that's great, but that wasn't where I was. So mine came from actually just being annoyed and frustrated at there only being one narrative. So I decided that I was going to try and write about what it's really like, or at least the experience that I knew and the experience that I knew a lot of other women that I'd got to know and had spoken to. And so I decided to start writing a blog, and I had a thought that I wanted to try and write a book, because again, the only other books always ended with the miracle baby. And that has been incredibly healing. And it's actually taken me on this incredible journey of broadcasting and being in a film and, going on radio and just being and meeting so many people. And that has been what's helped me emotionally, is being able to find my voice. That's been what's very long and convoluted answer to your question.
No, it's wonderful. And that actually leads into the next question. So your blog is called, and the organization, is it an organization?
No,
the Uber Barrens Club?
So I talk about, infertility, or, anyone experiencing fertility problems. And I use that as shorthand, including pregnancy loss, anything about not being able to conceive or carry a baby to term. So that includes infertility, primary or secondary, miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, molar pregnancy, late miscarriage, stillbirth, anything that's wanting to have a baby and they're not being able to. It's a club that no one wants to join. But as with so many things, when you speak to other members of that same club, there is an instant understanding and a sisterhood, that you have a common understanding, and there's a language and a shorthand and a vocabulary that need not be explained. And it's just it's not just me. Oh, you get it. And actually the kind of the barren's a hideous word. It's been used throughout history as a slur, incredibly derogatory, devoid, lacking, inferior, dried up. It's an awful word. But actually it came as a sort of label. It was actually ironically on Mumsnet, the largest parenting forum, but there were infertility boards, and we jokingly, some of us, the kind of more irreverent ones, jokingly referred to it as the barren ghetto, because we were like, well, that's where the barren women go. But actually it became very kind of, actually taking a kind of slur. How do you drain a slur of its power? We've seen this with so many different, language, whether it's dyke, queer, if you can reappropriate oppressive language and reclaim it, you can drain a slur of its power. And so we kind of jokingly referred to ourselves as, the Barrens and the Uber Barrens, saying we're not just infertile, we're really, really infertile. Now that happened to be on, a thread on a forum. There were lots of, but I it isn't a club or a community. To me, it is anybody who has, we are a silent sisterhood. We are a sorority. There is, 1 in 6 or 1 in 7, depending on the statistics you look at, couples experiences trouble conceiving. 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage. We are a very large sisterhood, but we're also a silent sorority. And so I don't, yes, I have, Instagram, and there's kind of lots of different, I'm involved in lots of different communities, but it's not my club. To me, it's a way of talking about the fact that you are not alone. So it's not my club, but it's sort of my handle that I use for my blog, my potential, the book that I'm hoping to write, and anything I talk about. So it's not just about me. I am not Uber Barrens Club. We are all, you are anybody who has experienced fertility or problems, you are not alone, and you're part of. It's a club that no one wants to join. Membership of our club is defined by exclusion from the club that we want to join, which is the Parents Club. And it's a club that no one wants to join, but it means the world when you're not alone. So that's why I kind of use that as a I guess it's not just a metaphor, and that's the kind of name I have, but it's really trying to hold space for a conversation.
And so tell us a little bit more about the book you said you're hoping to write.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, that I just got frustrated that every book that I read, there are lots of different, most of books about infertility, there's lots of books about the beginning of the journey that are about how to get pregnant or about your fertility, practical guides, and, there's a couple of memoirs. And apart from a couple, the vast majority end with the miracle baby. And as I said, that there was a narrative that I knew with these online communities, and the experience that I knew that I didn't see reflected was messy. And I was ashamed of being infertile, but I was ashamed of all the feelings that came with it, and the guilt, the grief, the desperation, all of the crazy nasty things that you feel and that you think, and the jealousy and how what it does to your identity. And so for me, I decided, well, that was the book what I got from the online communities. I had this incredible support, but you have to go looking for it. So I wanted to try and kind of make the invisible visible and go, well, how can I raise women's voices to have a different conversation? So I thought, well, that's the book I would have wanted to read. I didn't know if anyone else would want to read it. I thought they probably would. And I knew women would pour their hearts out on forums and in anonymous communities and on Instagram and so on. So I put up a website and I put up a survey to see whether there was kind of women would share. And this isn't about your journey in terms of the practicalities or how many cycles did you do or this or how many losses. It's about the emotions, because that's the thing that binds us. That's the thing that is a club, is that it doesn't matter whether your journey is long or short, successful, not successful. There are, it's not about identities. There are emotions that bind us that we will all have experienced in one form or another. So I put up a survey to see whether people were, would be willing. And I was amazed the amount of responses that came in. And, I asked in the last thing of the survey again, would you want to read a book like this? And again, so many people said yes, because I would have felt less alone. I would have known that the feelings that I have are normal. So that was the thing that my sort of 3 goals that I would like is 1, to, help people know that they're not alone. 2, to try to normalize and validate that whatever you are feeling, however weird or uncomfortable, somebody else has felt that too. And then the 3rd thing is to actually help you to know that not every story ends with a baby, but that, the sense of you'll get there. There might not mean a baby, but you will get there and you will be okay, whatever happens. So I'm now trying to put that together and assemble that into something resembling a book. I'm now writing about it. I've written The Guardian, and it's just taken on a whole life of its own. And it's very healing.
That's a really nice message. You will be okay no matter what happens.